northwesterly 20 to 30 knots, tending north to northwesterly 20 to 25 knots in the morning, then shifting south to southwesterly 20 to 30 knots in the evening. Seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Swell westerly 2.5 to 3 meters, increasing to 3 to 4 meters during the afternoon, then tending southwesterly 3 to 4 meters by early evening. Weather partly cloudy, 90% chance of showers. Forecast for Wednesday. Wind west to southwesterly 20 to 30 knots. Sea 2 to 2.5 meters. Swell southwesterly 4 meters. Weather cloudy, 80% chance of showers. Forecast for Thursday. Wind southwesterly 15 to 25 knots. Sea 1.5 to 2 meters, decreasing to 1 to 1.5 meters during the afternoon. Swell southwesterly 4 to 5 meters. Weather cloudy, 50% chance of showers. Weather report for Tasmanian coastal waters for the hour up to 2:03 a.m. the 23rd of April 2024, unless otherwise stated. Cape Sorel, wind north at 17 knots, gusting to 22 knots. King Island, wind east-northeast at 5 knots, gusting to 5 knots, visibility 10 kilometers. Devonport Airport, wind south at 7 knots, gusting to 7 knots, visibility 10 kilometers. Low Head, wind south-southwest at 5 knots, gusting to 6 knots. Flinders Island Airport, wind north-northeast at 5 knots, gusting to 5 knots, visibility 10 kilometers. Swan Island, wind west-northwest at 16 knots, gusting to 22 knots. Eddystone Point, wind northwest at 12 knots, gusting to 15 knots. St Helens, wind northwest at 8 knots, gusting to 11 knots, visibility 10 kilometers. Crazy Beaches, wind calm. Maria Island, wind north-northwest at 18 knots, gusting to 21 knots. Denali, wind northwest at 5 knots, gusting to 6 knots. Point, wind calm. Tasman Island, wind west-northwest at 8 knots, gusting to 12 knots. Cape River, AWS, wind north-northwest at 7 knots, gusting to 8 knots. Matsaka Island, wind north at 19 knots, gusting to 24 knots. Low Rocky Point, wind north at 14 knots, gusting to 21 knots. Neptune Island, wind north at 12 knots, gusting to 13 knots. Cape Border, wind northeast at 7 knots, gusting to 9 knots. Cape Otway, wind north at 11 knots, gusting to 16 knots. Wilson's Promontory, wind north at 8 knots, gusting to 14 knots. Gabo Island, wind north at 10 knots, gusting to 11 knots. End of transmission from VMC for this part of the program.